Well, hey, how y'all doing out there today? Listen, I'm not trying to steal you Sunday. I've been compiling a lot of data about these missing planes ever since the Malaysian missing planes. Um, a lot black boxes not being found. Groundings. A lot of airports around the globe will ground aircraft according to solar radiation coming off the sun, solar flaring, or strong CMEs. Our magnetosphere is weak, very weak right now, about 20% since they started measuring it in the 1850s. And it's declining. Our poles are shifting. A lot of things are happening with the Earth itself, but at certain levels in the atmosphere, especially where planes fly, it seems a lot of unsolved mysteries are happening. So I just want to give y'all a little insight on something and give you something to think about. And also, if you can get away with it, I highly advise you don't fly anymore. It's just not safe for you physically or health wise. And I'll explain that here in a minute. Well, first we had this Ethiopian crash, right? And the difference between this crash and any other crashes is that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, got out on the TV and basically told Boeing, a private company, that you're grounding these planes. Well, that got me to thinking, like, wow, why are they putting so much attention on this flight in Ethiopia and this one plane from a couple crashes? I mean, you're talking billions and billions of dollars, y'all. Not only just in the planes not flying, but just money not being made off of them, the cost of the planes themselves. All of this combined, I mean, like, wow. And the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, he gets out there and he tells the rest of the world we're grounding this particular 737 MAX planes. Well, uh, what you got to go back and look at is, what do those 737s have in common, and why would they pick on this particular one? Well, really, it's not just the 737. It's the computer systems that are in planes these days, y'all. The Malaysian flight that disappeared was a 777. The one that crashed and disappeared after that, I think it was a 737. But the thing is, there's been a couple of different crashes, and the black box is not found. Well, the Ethiopian government found this black box, so that's probably why they grounded the 737s. Because what you're going to come to find out is, even with minor CMEs coming off the sun, which just come from black holes, or just minor activity, minimal activity from the sun, it is affecting these aircraft at the altitude that they're flying. Average plane flies about 35 to 43,000 feet, so that's 6 to 7 miles in the air. They're way more susceptible to the few layers that they've gone over in our atmosphere to get higher doses of this, to get hit with it stronger. The computer systems don't hold out. The ones in the military are all covered up. The computers are all protected from this, but commercial airlines don't do this. So at any given time, something can hit that plane, knock out that computer system. Now, you've seen these planes at the airport. You hear them going by. They're big, giant things, and you wonder sometimes how they fly. Well, they really couldn't fly without that computer. But you take a pilot, he's an autopilot, and they're up there in the front, and they're paying attention. Let's just say it's great pilots, best pilots in the world. But the computer system that's running the plane gets knocked out. Everything flashes for a second. With a plane that size, without any engine power and just loss of controls, just for a few seconds would go into a dive. When they go into this dive from losing the computer, from losing all the power, they try to correct this. One of the ways they correct this, and you will find in the wreckage of this plane and the other 737 that crashed, is that the guide on the tailstock was pointed a certain way. It was to get them back up in a big giant curve. Those planes don't glide well. They don't fly well. They have to have the power of those jet engines on the back pushing them. It all relies on thrust, forward thrust. So just within 10 seconds of not having control of the plane, or just switching over to manual, you would lose the plane. This is what's been happening. Now, they say they can't find the black boxes. Y'all, the black box in aircraft have historically been the best built thing on the plane. You literally can't destroy one with a nuclear strike weapon. I mean, it's how they find the plane. It's how they get all the data that was going on before that crash, during that, as the crash was going on, until the last minute, until it's ripped away from the wires maybe. But the black box do not disappear. Missing planes, bullshit. That box was burnt out by solar rays. Or CME. These things are getting burnt out up here in high altitudes. Now, also, this is why I say I don't think I would ill advise you to fly. And here's the main reason. That radiation that knocks out those computers is deadly to you. When you're up there at 6 or 7 miles in the sky, you're getting about 400 times the amount of different types of radiation and cosmic rays than you would ever get on the Earth. A lot of us talk about jet lag, but we only went a few hours. No, this would wear you out almost like a chemo treatment. And I'm not belittling chemo treatments. I'm just saying that the people that fly long terms, or even pilots that have to swap back and forth, they only get so many flight hours because of this. There are many factors in this you need to read into, but flying right now is not good for your health, just from the weak magnetosphere, the altitudes of the plane. And guess what? Because something can just knock that plane out for a few seconds. What if it was an EMP? I'm not going to, a man-made EMP. Anything could happen to that plane just for a few seconds, and they're not really designed to fly that well. They're damn sure not designed to glide. You ain't never seen a jumbo jet glide on down and land. It's not going to happen like that. They pretty much fall out of the sky without the thrust. So you please think about this. Look at the story beyond the story. The one point in the Ethiopian plane crash and the 737 grounding that I paid attention to the most was, first of all, the very first time a president ever came out and officially shut down an airline or a particular thing. I didn't even know the government could do that, and much less the president of the United States. So that got me shocked into it. And then when you pay attention to the similarities in the crash and what they're finding in the crashes, local governments are finding the black boxes. And guess what? Before anybody else could, let's put it that way. And they're getting the data from these black boxes. They're seeing what's shut down, and that is going to come back on the airline industry. This probably will bring a lot of awareness to why airports shut down with certain amounts of solar activity. Say if we're at a KP3 to a KP5, which is an indicator on how much solar radiation is coming down on us. Solar flaring, as some people want to call it, or CMEs, the strength of them is gauged with this. They'll shut an airport down. It also has been blowing a lot of these transformers, and it also kind of correlates with the weaponry that they're using nowadays, and we're seeing used around the world. So it's kind of hard to get it mixed up. So don't get it mixed up. These planes are not protected from the sun. They fly at extremely high altitudes and are very bulky objects. Anything could go wrong. Yes, it is still the safest way to travel. And guess what? You could take a deep breath right now, but by the time you release it, there will be 500,000 people over your head from 5,000 aircraft flying. There's 5,000 commercial aircraft going across America every day. There's another 4,000 going around the world following the sun to spray the chemtrail. So the solar radiation management, and this is part of what they're protecting their grid. This is another reason I want to point this out to y'all about the planes. The solar radiation management, or the spraying of the sky, as y'all say, it's reflected. It's reflective materials to bounce this back. So it takes out electronics, especially sensitive gear like computers. But the radiation levels up there at certain parts of our atmosphere are just astronomical. Our ground radiation is bad enough. The cosmic rays, the CMEs, the solar flaring that you're getting now is a lot of the reasons why we're upset or feel bad or feel achy a lot of times, or whatever. It does affect your health. Space weather affects our health, but it sure affects those planes a lot more than this news is telling you. So when you get something as drastic as a president coming out and shutting down a whole multi-billion-dollar fleet of aircraft, you might want to see why it's that important. Because last time they shut down aircraft like this, it was on 9/11. And that's just something. That's just a little something to think about. I'm not trying to make any correlation. But look at the radiation levels before you fly next time. Look at the altitudes that your plane's going to fly. Hey, but the price of an airline ticket's pretty cheap right now. You ever notice that? You can get a flight for 60, 70 bucks sometimes. But you ever think about maybe hiring a local guy? I mean, you're just going somewhere. You don't have to be in a jet aircraft. Maybe you can fly with somebody if you got to fly, but I would stay out of the sky, y'all. I'm a ground person anyway. I like my feet on the ground, but I've flown back and forth from Australia twice, And you get about midway over the Pacific Ocean, and you're going to find the loneliest place in the world. And you're sitting in an airplane, and I was thinking about this the whole time, and I white knuckled it. I white knuckled it and didn't sleep a wink during them 16 hours. So think about it. Another thing too, I did work for the airline industry. I worked for Pratt Whitney Aircraft for 10 years. We developed the PW 2000 and 4000 engine sets back in the 80s that went into a lot of these planes in the 90s. That's why I knew there wasn't supposed to be contrails up in the sky. They're designed not to do contrails. The engine sets on these 737s are made by one company exclusively. That's a hell of a good bid to get. And the new planes that they're going to use, that might play into this too. But the truth about it is space weather affects our electrical grid. You get it? Our magnetosphere that blocks this back is weak. They're spraying our skies to keep the electrical grid alive. And they do have weapons that can knock out parts of our grid. Crazy days, but we need to stay awake. We need to stay aware, and we need to tell each other what we know. So if you got any insight on this and want to add to it, there you go. Let me know. I love talking about this stuff because we're the only people responsible for our safety, y'all. There might be a lot of people fixing to get money from this airline. There might, whatever, but you are responsible for your safety. You are responsible for your safety. And the only way you can keep yourself safe is through knowledge. So learning from others' mistake, which is kind of like Darwinism, you learn from our failures, but think about that. It's not safe to be up there for your health. And we're just going through an age and a time period